A talk show that cuts to the truth, no matter how painful it might be, and no BS. Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith.
Here is a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the dogs, the filth. Here is someone who stood up.
It's time for Citizen Smith.
Hey there, Citizen Smith here on Thursday, June 24th. We're going to be talking about a very serious issue that's been ongoing in Portland, about the homeless crisis, I call it. And I've got somebody sitting in studio with me that will help us understand it better, because I'm not going to take it on. You need to be out in the streets talking to these people. And Diane Grundy, who is sitting next to me, we refer to her as a homeless activist.
That's right.
Yeah. And she's joining me today to talk about this issue, which you've been following closely for quite some time.
Yes.
Us in the media have been following it in the headlines for like the past year. But the homeless crisis in Portland is something that is not new.
Right.
In fact, how long would you say it's been a crisis mode?
It's always been a crisis, but it's really exploded in the last 2 years, I would say.
Why?
I do not understand why. Economic downfall, probably COVID had something to do with it. There are a number of issues.
People say that Portland is a very moderate temperature place, so it attracts people from around the country. They gravitate to, say, Seattle, Portland, and California, of course.
Exactly. The entire West Coast is being hit really hard right now with the homeless population.
I guess we should ask and let the viewers know, why are you so concerned, and why do you want to be an activist and involved directly? You actually go out in the streets, talk to the people.
Yeah.
Help them when you can,
Yeah.
in certain respects. First of all, why do you want to be so involved like that? You kind of do it on your own. You're not like with an organization.
No.
That kind of activism is risky. It
could be.
be dangerous, but you say you're not worried about it.
No, I'm not at all. I just really enjoy sitting down and talking to people. I don't know. My ethos is all about compassion, and I like hearing people's stories, and I like treating humans like humans. I don't know. It's pretty simple. There's
a lot of things to be discussed about this issue, and this is just one show, and you just came on as a guest.
Yeah.
But we're taking it to another level as well. We want you to be involved in a podcast talk show here at Talkcast PDX. You did your first interview with a gentleman.
Yeah.
And delve into the issue of the homeless crisis in Portland, which we're relying on government to fix things, but you want to get more directly involved and hear the voices of the people themselves. Maybe they can help push along what issues need to be addressed and how to fix them, which is part of the show, which is kind of an activist show we're starting at Talkcast PDX, which will start this weekend.
Yep.
You came up with a name.
Yeah, the name is Unsheltered.
Yeah, so Unsheltered will be on Talkcast PDX, so that this very difficult, complex problem has lacked one thing: a voice. You get occasional quotes in a newspaper article or a TV blip.
Yep.
Although you don't really see homeless people talking to TV reporters. They're kind of shy about the camera, right?
Absolutely.
So the challenge is to get them to talk.
Yep.
Now, right now, are we going video or audio only? I think we're going audio only, right? Well, we could do both, right?
I would like to do both,
Yeah.
but that depends on the permission of people that I'm interviewing.
Right.
So it's like a tricky issue, because a lot of people don't want to be interviewed because they don't want their family to know that they're on the streets, or they don't want to be seen in the condition that they're in. But the aim of what I want to do is to give voice to people who are normally overlooked and not listened to.
I tried to do that myself when I first got here, and it was a complete disaster. I said, I'll go out and talk to some of the people on the street that are homeless and find out what the problem is, but they're not that forthcoming to a stranger.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have some sort of Jedi magic where I can disarm people really quickly. And I know when it's unsafe to not talk to the wrong people, or I don't know.
Is there okay. All right.
Yeah,
but,
I think so.
I mean, are you getting well known within the community itself of the homeless people in Portland?
I am actually, especially within my neighborhood. I live in inner southeast, close to Laurelhurst, where there's a huge camp. And a lot of the homeless people know me there and bring me gifts. I hang out with them, play guitar and sing with them. And I don't know, it feels really natural to me. And I know which ones are scary and which ones are really awesome to talk to. I don't know. Everyone deserves a voice, though. That's for sure.
Really, exactly. And that's why we want to do this podcast.
Yep.
That's why we want to talk to them and bring in government officials, government workers, bureaucrats to discuss the issue. Because we have a city in Portland and that is saying, first of all, we got $250 million that is going to be generated annually, they estimate, from the tax on corporations, and that's supposed to go towards building shelters. I mean, if you have $250 million, first of all, I think it's important to have an oversight of what's going on. And that could be you.
It could be,
hopefully. Right? Seriously, $250 million. Don't you want to know where the money's going and what's going on?
Absolutely. But from what I understand, it's really hard to get politicians to talk about these things, and the transparency is really hard to get through.
It's not just difficult, they just don't want to.
Right.
They don't want to be held accountable.
Right.
They don't want to address the tough questions.
Exactly.
So, that's you, baby. I'm looking for you to do that.
I'm going to try. Are
you ready to talk to politicians and ask the hard questions?
I am. I mean,
you don't seem like that kind of gal. You seem a little more quiet but you're going to have, but maybe there's a side we don't know to Diane Grundy.
Well, I feel like at first, in addition to talking to people who are experiencing homelessness, I would like to interview a number of people who are actively working on that, like people running homeless shelters and community outreach projects. There's so many to list, I can't even begin right now.
Yeah. It's a big undertaking. There's a lot of people to talk to, though, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Are there many shelters in the city, in your opinion?
There's so many shelters in the city, actually.
See, I'm not sure where they are. I know there's a couple in my neighborhood right here. I see them. But when I walk around, I don't see where the other ones are.
A majority of them have had to close because of COVID, and that might be why you're seeing more people on the streets right now.
When you say why would they close the shelters because of COVID when that's exactly where they need to help people?
I don't know. That's a huge
But that's what you've heard?
Well, this is only what I'm told.
Well, what you've observed.
It's what I've been told by people on the streets. And so, this is when I want to bring in people who can actually speak to this. And it's not me. But I would like to speak to people running shelters more.
One of the things about the shelters and when you walk the streets and sidewalks of Portland is that they live in filth. Some of these areas. I mean, it's garbage. When they leave an area, there's trash. This offends business owners and residents.
Right.
And it just looks bad in the city. Now, the city has taken a tough stance, they say, to clean up these illegal camps by evicting them. I said, how do you evict somebody from a homeless situation?
Right, they're just going to move another street over,
which is exactly what's happened. Since that statement was made over a month ago by the mayor.
Right.
In the mayor's office.
Right. They keep doing sweeps, and it's really terrible. People move back and forth. In my neighborhood, they were all camped out at Sunnyside Park, and then they would move back to Laurelhurst and get swept out and move back to Sunnyside Park, and it was just a back and forth forever. And
so it's been totally ineffective.
Yeah. I mean, where you can't just sweep people out when they have nowhere to go.
It's a huge problem. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think Portland is prepared for this, but now they've got the money that's supposed to be flowing in to at least take care of the financial side of building shelters and
Yep.
and you have to have rehabilitation.
Right.
Drug addiction issues have to be addressed, mental health
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
This is a whole nother ball game. Now, this blight of homeless camps as you walk around, sometimes you can feel unsafe. I don't know how much that's warranted. Sometimes it just looks bad, or as a fire hazard. Now, I went out yesterday, and I just happened to be walking up the road here, and there was this massive camp of junk and garbage, and then there was a fire being made, and to cook or something. And all I could think is, this is a huge possible disaster ready to happen in a dry condition where these places burn up. There's fires all the time in these camps.
Sure, yeah.
So this was one, I did videotape it. I just wanted to show an example of what I thought was a pretty severe camp and fire hazard.
All right.
Here at the corner of Oak and 9th Avenue, Central East Side, there is this homeless dump. Temporary housing for somebody? I don't know, but it is a mess. And it's smoking hot, something burning. This is like a fire waiting to happen on a dry day. And it's a prime example of what the city needs to clean up. So, somebody's in there. I just saw the tent move. They get upset when you film them, so I'll just... But, I mean, this is what I was walking up, and this is what I passed. And this is the problem in Portland, as we talk about it today. Okay, I mean, a little harsh. I said dump in that. I thought it was a dump. I didn't know somebody was living there.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like an area they just put all this trash, or somebody formerly... It doesn't look like a livable, habitable area, but then somebody started coming out of one of those canopies. That's when I realized there was a human being in there.
Yeah.
But it's not the way people should live. And, one of the things we talked about before we went on the air here is that some people choose to live this way, they say, when you talk to them.
Right.
Does anybody really choose to live that way?
I mean, for example, when I had Michael over the other day.
This is the gentleman you interviewed that will be on your first episode of
Yes.
Unsheltered.
Yeah, I guess this would be a sneak peek into the first episode. But as he said, there is the argument that a lot of people don't want to work for 60 hours a week to make minimum wage to barely be able to afford housing in Portland. And beyond the homelessness crisis that is happening, like rent is going up everywhere. They say that there's like controlled rent for a lot of people, but it's not really proving to be effective for the wages.
Or is it being implemented? Like, are these apartment complexes truly honoring this controlled rent? Because
it's really not. Like, these are huge issues in Portland right now, and they all need to be addressed. And I would really like to get some city council members to talk about that, because I don't even understand how people can, like, who makes our coffee? Like, where do they live? Like, I don't even understand how, like, minimum wage workers can afford to live right now. And because rent is so high right now in Portland, and I don't know, I've been here for 17 years now, and it's just exploded since I've lived here. And I don't know how a young person can even move to this city and afford to live. So
you don't have to be young. You can be old like me and move to the city. And I'm just getting by.
Yeah.
I mean,
seriously.
$1,500, you have to pay a month just to get into a place around here.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm talking like a studio.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I left Boston, and you got to spend $2,500.
Right.
So it's like $1,000 cheaper here.
Right.
But it's going up. But then they said people moved out, and there's vacancies, and they're building apartments, but they said a lot of people left the city. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know anything about people leaving. I
You
thought
haven't seen
everyone
that?
was moving here.
Yeah, so it's the other way around, right?
Yeah,
it's still
I thought so.
But everybody, oh, it's got all the riots and the violence and the homeless. People are leaving the city of Portland.
No, everyone's coming here because it's cheaper, but it's becoming less so, more and more. from what-
Double-edged sword, right?
I guess
you get the
so.
new, but then all right. Check this out.
Okay.
I've been running into this daily when I go to restaurants or a business.
Yeah.
Can't find staff. People, lost their jobs or left their jobs, and now these places can't find people to staff up for the restaurants, especially the service industry.
Right.
And I asked one restaurant owner, he said, well, they left because,
Unemployment checks.
yeah, they got the unemployment checks, the enhanced unemployment checks, which were more than they were making as a waiter or bartender,
Right.
maybe. And secondly, he said, well, they, during this time, decided, that ain't such a good living working as a waiter, and I'm going to move on with my life and do something different.
Right, exactly. And that's happening for a lot of people. Like, everyone's understaffed for that. Restaurants and bars, and yeah.
So we could have an influx of people who find out there's jobs needed in Portland, and suddenly, you've got people that are young, 21, 20, 22.
Yeah.
I'm in between things. Yeah, I wanted to live in Portland. It's how come you can apply online through this website called Poached? It's a service industry website
cool.
or, portal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, the restaurant guy told me. It's the restaurant people know these things. So that's aside from the issue of homelessness, but it is about people coming to the city to live in what they will find is a very expensive apartment situation, which will put more pressure and maybe enhance the problem of homelessness. When they get here, they don't have an outlet.
Right.
And suddenly they find themselves in the street. How much does that happen? Somebody really isn't planning to be homeless, but on the circumstances, it's not mental illness, it's not alcoholism or drugs. They just found themselves in a financial situation where, damn, I just got evicted.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, all of us are, one medical accident away from being homeless ourselves. Like, you never know. And it's unique to every individual. And that's why it's important for people to share their stories.
If you don't have family to lean back on or friends that you can maybe shack up with, or a family member has a house available to you or apartment, space.
Yeah.
If you're in that kind of situation, you're easily out on the streets.
Right.
You take a percentage of the people of the population that fall into that category.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, mental illness comes in all forms, and a lot of it comes out of tragedy, like
depression.
Depression. Some people have been abused their entire lives. Very real things happen, and then there's also just like chemical depression that you're born with.
Yeah. How do you know? Because do you care to share your story?
I'll share a little bit of my story. I've experienced homelessness for a brief stint when I was a teenager. I don't really care to go through a lot of childhood trauma about it. And so, like, that's one example. Like, I don't really want to share my story. And so anybody that I talk to is really brave to be able to share their story. So that's
but it does give you the ability to have the perspective of, hey, I've been there.
Right.
Firsthand experience. I understand the challenges. And do you tell them that before you talk to them so that it kind of opens the door to communication? Or do you keep that to yourself? And
I mean, sometimes it comes up in conversation. Not all the time, but sometimes it comes up. I don't know.
So as we do this talk show podcast on homelessness in Portland, do you think we can make a difference? Like, will this communication, this voice of the homeless, maybe even help the situation in our little world of podcasting? Do you think we can make a difference?
I really do think that we can make a difference. And ways that we can do that is, for example, when you're witnessing somebody having a mental health crisis, you should be able to call a number for somebody who can de-escalate that situation. Whether somebody is having a mental breakdown or a drug overdose or something in the street, I mean, Portland's kind of famous at this point for police not being trained in the ability to de-escalate a situation. But we've all been trained as children to call 911 when there's an issue going on. But instead, there are a number of resources that we can call to help people, trained mental health workers and social workers that will show up on the scene and de-escalate the situation rather than draw a gun on them. So I feel like people need to hear those resources. I feel like there are a bunch of resources that the homeless community can get involved with to get their feet on the ground. But mostly, I feel like the whole part about interviewing people is to lift them up, to make them feel heard. Because I feel like there's a real social stigma, and we all look at them like trash and step over them and ignore them, and we look at them in fear. And if we allow them to at least speak their minds, I feel like that could activate real change.
Fascinating. Game-changing, breakthrough, exciting. I'm very, this is going to be one hell of a show to listen to and watch.
I think so as well, especially if we start getting politicians in there. Like, that's going to be really incredible. And, like, to have them show their accountability and where our tax dollars are going, so.
You're the perfect person for the job.
Thanks. I'm scared, but...
You got a great voice. You're eloquent, articulate, smart. You have the personal experience. Thanks. You have the insight. This was something I wanted to tackle as a talk show host, but I didn't feel confident and competent.
Yeah.
But I feel confident and competent with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Diane Grundy. She'll be hosting our new show, Unsheltered, on Talkcast PDX. It will debut this weekend. Keep an eye out on the website. We'll be launching it and hopefully doing it weekly.
Yep.
And I'm really curious to see what comes out of this.
Yeah.
Out of all the shows on our platform, which we've got over 20 now,
Amazing.
This is the one that interests me the most because I'm a journalist, an investigative reporter, or talk show host. I like dealing with local issues. And right now, there's not a more critical, important issue facing the city of Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, Boston. I don't care New York. You go into any of the major metropolitans.
Everywhere.
Homelessness is a huge issue.
Yep.
And they are the silent voices.
Yep.
But no more. Because on Talkcast PDX, they have a voice. And the show is Unsheltered. Diane Grundy joining me. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to wrap it up. Let's end on that note. It's a little shorter than our typical 30 minutes, but I think we've done enough today. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Friday's show, here on Citizen Smith.